What is that? SpaceX's Booster 14 returns from its static fire, but is it in danger? Ship 35 is growing, is it any different? The Starfactory is finally complete, how long till it's fully operational? And New Glenn is ready for launch, so what's the holdup? My name is Felix, welcome to What About It, let's dive right in. Starship updates. Welcome back to Starbase. Things have really been heating up around here, and I mean that literally, as Booster 14 has now completed its static fire campaign. From the ground, everything appeared to go smoothly, and thanks to a truly extraordinary view that SpaceX shared after the static fire showing the engines burning, we can now confirm that all 33 engines did in fact ignite. That's great. It appeared to be a complete success. However, it's impossible to tell for sure from the outside and until SpaceX rolls it back to the production site. That's exactly what happened. On the 10th, Booster 14 was detached from the launch mount and placed on its transport stand before the roads were closed, and it went on its 2-mile journey back to where all Starship prototypes currently originate from. This is where something strange happened. Typically, after returning from a static fire, a booster is rolled right back into the mega bay for final checks and installation of any missing components, including the hot staging ring. However, that is not what happened this time. Instead of heading straight into the mega bay, Booster 14 was kept outside as teams installed scaffolding supports around where its common dome is. Okay, what? This is extremely odd, as it's typically the first step before a booster is chopped in half. So are they going to scrap Booster 14 then? Probably not. It wouldn't make much sense to static fire a booster just to immediately scrap it unless something went horribly wrong, which we likely would have noticed. If SpaceX does end up taking the booster apart, it will likely be for upgrades or difficult repairs. This wouldn't even be the first time SpaceX had to do something like this, as Booster 7, the first booster to fly, malfunctioned during one of its tests and required the whole down camera to be replaced. Ouch. Hopefully this isn't the case, and this scaffolding is just there to inspect some welds or similar things, as something like chopping the booster in half would likely considerably delay Flight 7. No, we don't want that. But why do you think SpaceX added this scaffolding? Are they going to cut the booster in half? What are they doing? Let us know in the comments, let's see if we can figure it out together. Ship 33 wasn't moving much faster either, as road closures came and went throughout the week with no sign of activity. We were beginning to think something was wrong. The roads were then closed, and we watched as this marvel of engineering made its way down the road to Massey's. Once it arrived, it was placed over the flame trench and readied for its static fire. That should be happening any day now, and then we will finally be able to see what this ship is capable of. We're a little less than a month away from the currently known launch date of Flight 7, January 11th. So there is still time, but even if SpaceX has run into a snag on Ship 33, that isn't slowing down the other Block 2 ships, which are quickly catching up. The next one is well on its way. Last week, we saw the first part of Ship 35's payload section roll out of the Starfactory over to the high bay, and now we've seen the second one. On the morning of the 10th, the nose cone met the payload section in the high bay. After exchanging a few hearty high fives, they were stacked. While the payload section seemed to have some minor changes, specifically around the shrunk heat shield and slightly moved lifting points, the nose cone appears almost identical to ships 33 and 34. With this upper part now in one piece, the question is whether SpaceX will decide to move it back to the Starfactory as they did with Ship 34, or roll it straight over to Mega Bay 2 to continue stacking. Either way, the ship will likely be completed fairly quickly as SpaceX's pace of producing these ships increases. This is the third Block 2 ship SpaceX has begun stacking, and 2 more are already well into development. This speed is a direct result of the new Starfactory, which is still only partially operational, but already capable of this hefty increase in production speed. Just to put this into perspective, SpaceX can already produce a rocket larger than SLS at least once a month. Ships are becoming increasingly important in the space industry. SpaceX's drone ships and fairing recovery vessels, as well as Blue Origin's Jacqueline, destined to be the landing pad for New Glenn, are just a few examples. Ships have been a part of human history for thousands of years. Veterans across the planet can tell the story. And one game possibly does the best job of retelling the history of naval engagement: World of Warships. For Veterans Day, World of Warships celebrates the veteran community in a special way. Use the invite code VETS4VETS and get a massive package for free. 200 doubloons, 14 days premium, 2 million credits, Matt the Commander, the Fat Electrician, and a choice of a tier 4 ship unlocked after only 15 battles. Follow the link in the pinned comment and the description. I am inviting you. The scenes you're seeing here aren't fake promo footage. This is me. This is my collection of ships, my account, and my time spent. Hundreds of hours of fun. Because World of Warships is a special gem for anyone who likes tactics and ships. World of Warships is full of tactics. Aircraft carriers provide air superiority. Battleships form your frontline defense wall. Cruisers are your fast response team. Destroyers are the silent specialists providing intel and sniping you out of battle when you least expect it. I've had so many adrenaline pumping situations throughout my years of playing, and I've made some in-game friends along the way. All in-game ships are made to the highest possible standards, utilizing real-world blueprints for the best possible historical accuracy. World of Warships releases new content monthly, like the Veterans Day event now running from November 7th to December 31st. I invite you. Use my code VETS4VETS to create a new account and get a massive package for free. 200 doubloons, 14 days premium, 2 million credits, Matt the Commander, the Fat Electrician, and a choice of a tier 4 ship unlocked after only 15 battles. Follow the link in the pinned comment or the description. With a little luck, we'll meet in-game. But now construction does seem to have taken priority as SpaceX works to build a rocket facility capable of launching us to Mars and building the things that get us there. In fact, they have been working so fast lately that the Starfactory is practically done as far as we're concerned. The main connection between it and the office building has now been finished from the outside. The main wall facing the road is completed, including the amazing glass facade that continues down the connection, giving us a stunning view of the inside. Thank you, SpaceX. There are likely a few parts around the factory that we can't quite see still receiving their final touches, but overall, the structure of the factory is now essentially complete. Ha! All that's left is for SpaceX to finish the internals, and then it should be done. The importance of this building for human spaceflight can't be overstated. It is the first mass production facility of a super heavy lift vehicle in history, and that is crazy. This building has been under construction in some form or another for over 2 years now. Now that it is finally reaching operational status, we should begin to see an assembly line of ships form inside and outside. And SpaceX likely won't stop here either. Never think that SpaceX is done and that this is it. Big mistake. We already know that SpaceX plans to expand the production site with an even larger vertical assembly bay nicknamed the Giga Bay. It wouldn't surprise me if eventually SpaceX decides that they need even more floor space for the Starfactory itself. I mean, it's large, don't get me wrong, but comparing it to something like Tesla's Gigafactory puts into scale what mass production can really look like. And SpaceX wants that for Starship, which is a vehicle a few hundred times the size. They'll likely need more space or a lot more factories. More factories means you need more launch pads, because as of now there is only one and it's not the best. Booster 14's static fire shows that the time needed to make Pad A operational between flights seems to be around 2 to 4 weeks, which is significant progress from the early flights. Those took months to repair. SpaceX will undoubtedly continue reducing the time needed to refurbish Pad A. However, the ultimate goal is not to need any refurbishment time at all, and it appears that this older design will make that difficult, if not impossible. That's why SpaceX has opted to completely overhaul the design of its other pads, starting of course with Pad B and the addition of a flame diverter. Finally. We've seen a lot of work towards this lately, with the pile of excavated dirt seeming to grow by the day and more concrete being poured. Hopefully this initial groundwork won't take much longer, as many of the parts are getting closer to being ready to install. While teams at the launch site have been hard at work moving tons of dirt to make room for the trench, teams at the build site have been putting the first pieces of the diverter together. Ha ha ha. This makes it very clear why SpaceX first tried to build a water tower-like pad for its rocket. It's just way quicker to make and also way less good, it seems. This gigantic metal ramp, which will replace the deluge plate on Pad B, forces the rocket's exhaust away from the pad. It protects it from the immense forces of the engines and prevents them from bouncing back at the rocket. You can see these shockwaves here in SpaceX's footage. They go down and up again. That's the problem. However, that means this ramp needs to survive the blast's force, which is why these structural beams are so large. It appears SpaceX is making fast progress on this diverter, and the mount itself appears the same way. From the outside, the mount doesn't appear to have changed much. However, teams have been hard at work on the vital internals. This part is likely even more important as the delicate pipework needed to make this mount work is extensive, including all the hardware needed to start the outer ring of Raptor engines. But before I tell you about that, help us improve the channel even further by double checking that you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our updates. While you're at it, give us a like and become a wise supporter. Why? Because you'll gain access to a massive amount of extra content immediately. Daily new Starbase photo galleries, including all those we've posted so far, satellite, aerial and ground photos. We just hit 1,000 posts since our Patreon account was created. Up to 7 picture galleries per week, insights, chats with me, you name it. Thank you so much, you rock! All these pipes need to bring propellants from somewhere, and that's why the tank farm is so important as well. It holds thousands of tons of oxygen and methane until Starship is ready to fly. And let's not forget that with more launches comes even more propellant. That's another question I've personally not been able to solve yet. How will they get all this propellant to the launch site? Tankers can't be the solution long term. Why, you ask? Oxygen, methane and nitrogen are needed for a launch. For ease of calculation, I'm leaving the nitrogen out entirely, so take that into account. A tanker truck carries roughly 17 metric tons of propellant. These numbers are heavily rounded for ease of calculation. This leaves us with around 76 tanker trucks for one ship and around 200 trucks for the booster. That's 276 trucks even completely leaving the nitrogen needed to cool the propellants out of the calculation. Now let's say they can bring one truck to Starbase every hour and that 24/7. This would take them 8 days and 8 hours to fill the tank farm for one launch. That is not 3 launches per day, which is SpaceX's goal for Starship. Now, SpaceX is working on an air liquefaction plant on site, and a methane pipeline has been discussed. None of that is operational yet, though. It makes sense that we have seen so much work on the tank farm recently as SpaceX expands it to accommodate the larger tanks and higher cadence of future vehicles and connect it to orbital pad B. Most of what we had seen recently was prep work, with workers installing a pair of subcoolers, and now they've brought in the big stuff. If you remember earlier, I mentioned multiple road closures for Ship 33. And even though they weren't used for Ship 33, these gigantic tanks made good use of them, as they could make it down to the pad. Once they arrived, they were immediately hooked up to the new Buckner LR11000 crane and lifted into place. The hardware at Starbase is truly massive. They needed to close the road to transport this tank, and yet it can only hold a fraction of what Starship can. So we've covered the production site and launch site, but there is one area we haven't covered in a bit: Massies. There is a flurry of activity, especially around the Can Crusher 2.0. This contraption was built to stress test the primary load structure of Starship. It tries to bend and squish them. Over the past few days, it appears workers have been prepping it for even more testing, as more hydraulics were seen being lifted into this testing ring. Seeing as it is now a ring taller from the last testing, I'm curious what prototype they plan on testing in it. There wouldn't be a good reason to go much taller other than if you were going to be testing a full vehicle. This will be interesting to see for sure. Okay, so that is Starbase, but Starship is outgrowing this one launch site now, so let's take a quick look at how things at the Cape are coming along. It seems that most of the work being done is still focused on the old liquid oxygen tank that SpaceX built. Teams have been taking slice after slice off. They appear to be going pretty quickly, and it is likely the tank will be gone within just a few days, but hopefully SpaceX doesn't stop there. Much work remains to make this place suitable for a Starship, but it should be more than worth it. Especially as SpaceX begins bumping into the 25 launches a year cap currently in place at Starbase. While Starship's ultimate goal is to be the world's most affordable rocket, development of this vehicle has not come cheap. SpaceX said it invested over $3 billion in infrastructure at Starbase. That only covers the buildings. Fortunately though, Starship has a trick. It doesn't need to be profitable. Wait, what? At least not immediately. SpaceX is subsidizing its development through the Starlink constellation, so cash flow isn't a problem for them. This constellation has grown even more as SpaceX has successfully completed its first shell of direct-to-cell satellites. Direct to what? These satellites can connect directly to any phone, like a cell tower, meaning you can text from anywhere on the planet. Like at the South Pole with your normal phone. With this shell now complete, SpaceX will likely begin rolling it out in small tests before making it fully available to the public. This is likely one of the most direct benefits that the everyday person will see from Starlink, as they've partnered with at least 7 service providers around the planet so far. In the US, T-Mobile will exclusively have direct-to-cell features for 1 year after partnering with Starlink. This means that even if you don't have Starlink, you may soon use one of their satellites. This capability will eventually grow even better thanks to Starship's help, as SpaceX will be able to launch the larger version 2 satellites. These will expand the capabilities beyond text messages into voice and data. For now though, the V2 Minis with direct-to-cell capability can be launched on SpaceX's workhorse rocket, the Falcon 9. And with it launching so many times to get the satellites into orbit, it's no surprise that Falcon 9 has hit yet another record. As a fun fact, these launches are so often, and I live so close to the pads here at the Cape, that I often have to look at launch schedules before recording. Otherwise, you wouldn't hear me! In a new record, booster 1067 has hit the milestone of launching and landing 24 times in total after deploying yet another group of Starlink satellites. 24. We were beginning to fear that this milestone might never be achieved, as the previous 2 rockets that came close did not return from their 23rd flights. Fortunately, it appears 1067 has finally done it. It successfully landed on the drone ship a short fall of gravitas before being returned to the Cape to be prepared for its 25th flight. Interestingly, when Falcon 9 finally reaches 25 flights, it will tie in with the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Maybe SpaceX should start properly naming its boosters if they will be flying that much. What do you think? Any name suggestions for B1067? Considering SpaceX's goal with Falcon 9 was 10 flights per booster, it is incredible that we now have a booster flying for the 24th time. And while Starship will soon likely outpace the Falcon 9, it is still important to remember that this is the only operational rocket capable of doing this still. Many competitors should be coming online soon though, including Blue Origin's New Glenn, which is seemingly days away from launch with one caveat. It still hasn't static fired. This is driving me insane. Over the past few days, we've seen numerous tests on New Glenn, including multiple tanking tests, but still no static fire. Want to hear something interesting? Now we know why, those juicy details. It's 3 words that anyone following Starship likely knows too well. Pending regulatory approval. It's nice to see that it is not just SpaceX, but it's still unfortunate that we are left waiting. The only problem now is that the longer Blue Origin needs to wait to static fire, the further the launch date gets pushed back. At this rate, it seems like it will slip until early next year. There is one upside. In the meantime, they have been sharing some incredible photos and videos. This includes a picture of their payload, Blue Ring Pathfinder, which is designed to deploy multiple satellites into different orbits. It's nice to see Blue Origin share more behind-the-scenes views. They are far ahead of most of the competition. In fact, comparing it to a rocket like SLS can help put it into perspective. Did you know that they are actually around the same size? Was that an eye-opener? Yeah, speaking of SLS, it's been undergoing quite a bit of work recently. Despite the announced delay for Artemis 2, NASA is pushing forward with stacking the SLS intended for the next flight. It started with the first segments of the solid rocket motors early this month, and the core has now officially begun stacking as well. With it beginning stacking so long before flight, engineers will have a chance to go over every inch to ensure perfection. After all, this one will be carrying people and sending them on a journey around the moon for the first time since 1972, so this should help. However, the solid rocket motors can only be stacked for around 2 months before needing to be recertified. The timer starts once the next segments are stacked. This isn't the only exciting NASA news. Along with stacking SLS, NASA also announced that they are targeting February for the launch of SpaceX on a Falcon 9 rocket. This astrophysics observatory will be truly incredible as it can map the entire night sky with an extremely high resolution every 6 months. This capability doesn't yet exist. We look at small spots at a time and never really have a complete overview. However, most interestingly, it will specifically be hunting for water and other life-related molecules around our galaxy. If something is found, that information can be sent to a more powerful telescope like James Webb, which can observe it with greater precision. It maps the entire sky, which should help us pinpoint the most interesting spots, as we'll be able to see all the options. Our last story today is an update on VAST, which we covered just recently after they showed off the first piece of their structural test article. And now just a couple weeks later it's assembled and only missing some paint, windows and doors. We've already seen all these missing components in one way or another, meaning they should be installed soon. VAST has been moving at incredible speeds with Haven 1 and it is clear they aren't playing around. I was skeptical at first that they could hit their target launch date of 2025, especially after only being founded in 2021. But they seem well on track, beating others working on space stations longer than VAST, which has been around for some time to be the first commercial space station. If all goes well with pressure testing, VAST will begin constructing the full thing and should have it up and operational by next year, only 4 years after its founding. Companies like VAST, SpaceX and even Blue Origin lead us into this new space age by trying new things, taking risks and moving further than others. It's truly been a treat to watch and it's only going to get more exciting from here. That's it for today. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe for more. This is what fuels the algorithm. This is how you can help us for free. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. A new Raptor design and our brand new Starship Block 2 design are both up. The perfect Christmas gift. Link is in the description and in the card you should see now. Also check our print store at shop.whataboutit.space to buy a picture for your favorite wall. A significant amount of every purchase goes directly to our photographers. And if you want to train your space IQ even further, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Air liquefaction. I'm sorry. To the public. The public are coming along. This capability, it's scrolling away.